Emma Williams joins us, Corporate Vice President of Microsoft, live out of Bellevue, Washington. Emma, great to talk to you. Appreciate at the time. This report that we were just talking about, a lot of really eyebrow-raising things being thrown up. What was the one thing that surprised you the most?
Well, I'd say that, first of all, let me just ground you in the research on this. We actually looked at trillions of signals coming from Microsoft in aggregate around meetings and chats and calls. And we also looked at all the job postings on LinkedIn in aggregate. And we blended that with a survey that we did globally of 31,000 people in 31 countries, business leaders, individuals, frontline workers, and information workers. And so it's quite a robust set of research. And it says very clearly, hybrid is here to stay, as you just said. And it can be and will be as disruptive as the pandemic was. And so the thing that popped for me, I think, that was most worrying is the impact on Gen Z, as you called out. Everybody wants flexibility. 41% of people are considering looking for a new job this year, moving to a new company. 46% of people are looking to move entirely to a new location. And then out of that, 54% of Gen Z are looking for a new job this year. So, that's a pretty high number when you compare to the 41% global average, which is already incredibly high. So it's really important for business leaders to sort of get a wake-up call and realize, oh my goodness, the future of my workforce are the youngest, and yet they can be the most important in the future of my workforce, and they're looking for new jobs.
Are those jobs going to come, Emma, because we are hearing a lot about the recovery. We're hearing a lot about pent-up demand being released. In terms of the channel checks that you guys have been performing over the course of this survey, is there any evidence that companies are going to rehire again?
Well, what we're seeing a lot of is some fascinating job postings on LinkedIn. As an example, on LinkedIn, we saw a 5x percentage increase in remote job postings. And why is that interesting? Well, because of the fact that this suddenly means you can appeal to a new workforce that perhaps you couldn't tap into before. So we're seeing underrepresented minorities, we're seeing women, we're seeing Gen Z, who all want that flexibility and of a different hybrid workforce, often applying for these jobs. So smart business leaders, as they're beginning to potentially grow their workforce, as they're reimagining their digitized business processes, they're moving into hybrid. The smart people are going to be looking at these trends and saying, how I actually set up and recruit from these other locations so that people can live local but work global will be an important new trend.
Emma, there are bigger structural issues that predate COVID, aren't they? And the narrative then was about how jobs transition to the fourth industrial revolution, the challenge from AI and automation. And I'm just wondering whether COVID has accelerated that shift, or are policymakers still behind the curve in terms of getting the workforce digital ready?
Well, what I'm seeing a lot from CEOs and from top business leaders is that frontline workers continue to be as critical as they have been before. And yet what they're looking to do is to more digitally empower their frontline workers. Because in most cases, in industries like retail, logistics, supply chain, healthcare, they've been the heroes of the past year. They've kept us all going. And the smart companies are realizing, actually, in order for me to really make sure that my business metrics continue to do well, I just need to empower this frontline workforce with better tools, with more reimagined, digitized processes. Many of them are looking at things like Microsoft Teams and figuring out how to build applications on top of Microsoft Teams as a platform to really light up their business processes, and looking at the information worker experiences and connecting information workers with frontline workers together. Because once you do that for the first time on a digital platform, you can truly reimagine the way you run your business.
Emma, I'm probably going to get smacked for saying this, but I'm only half being cheeky and joking when I ask this question. 2 out of 3, roughly, of Gen Zers, 18 to 25-year-olds in your report, say they're basically just hanging on. They're having a hard time handling the isolation, lack of interaction with human interaction with colleagues, etc. But I thought with Gen Zs, these guys just don't they tend to walk around looking at their handphones all the time and threatening to walk into walls? I mean, did it surprise you that this is an issue for them, this demographic?
Well, actually, I think that when you start to think about it, it makes sense. Remember, Gen Z, they probably only just came out of college in the past couple of years. They've joined their first company. This is the beginning of their work careers. Suddenly, a 100-year pandemic comes along. They're all working remotely from home. They're probably single because they're so young, and they've probably been alone. So you can imagine they don't have strong networks in a company. They're not connected the same way the business leaders are. We see 61% of business leaders are saying they're thriving. I'm super connected to my LT. I have a strong network. I'm taking my vacations. I'm feeling well. Whereas the Gen Z are feeling the complete opposite. And business leaders are therefore completely unaware of this right now. And they need a wake-up call to realize, oh, I've got to do a better job with Gen Z. And it all stems from culture, Martin and Tree. The smart companies are going to lean in on creating an inclusive culture that attracts people in a hybrid way, some 100% remote, some coming in and out of the office a couple of days a week, but really building that social capital, making those networks strong. And the culture is the way forward. It will define who stays in your company, who leaves your company, and who joins your company.
Absolutely. They need to be really cognizant of the needs to be flexible. Emma, secondary and tertiary education has been so profoundly disrupted by this pandemic. Did you come across any knock-on effects in terms of the necessary qualifications job seekers may need or may require to get into the workforce? And is that proving to be a stumbling block?
Well, I think that one of the things we saw from a lot of the LinkedIn job postings were, hey, a 5x increase, as I said, in those 100% remote jobs. And actually the types of skills that they're looking for people in some of those roles are different. And in fact, I think as you probably are aware, like Microsoft cares very passionately about skilling and training workers. And we have all of the capabilities in LinkedIn to help retrain and reskill workers if they've been furloughed from one job and want to try to move into a different industry and try a different area. And so we've announced a lot of work we've been doing around skilling and education for the workforce that we are really beginning to see, I think, will have an impact on the future here for hybrid.
Yeah, and I think that this is another narrative altogether, and whether there is the infrastructure to provide for the more senior workers who are looking to retrain in their 50s or nearing retirement is another important issue as well that we will discuss at a later stage. Emma, great conversation. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Emma Williams there from Microsoft.